What's up, everybody? It is good to be back live. I know last week was the 3-year anniversary of going viral and coming into your households or wherever you're watching. So it was a good little break to get to kind of reminisce on everything. So let's get back to work. What do you say? I never dreamt I'd be having a drink one day that said 0 sugar on it. But I am officially there in my life. It's not too bad though. So, I mean, what can you say except for, well? I mean, you really can't. You just got to smile and go like, remember that old slogan I always say all the time, and I'm not going to say it because I'm trying to eliminate a lot of slur words in my life, the slang. But remember that grin I told you to put on, that, you know, that kind of grin, that grin, yeah. Well, all of you patriots, you know, like remember Mr. Potato Head? Remember the little mouthpieces? You can put on a frown or a smile or whatever. Well, now is the time you insert your little grin and do like that. And you know, now there is a, you know, now I'm all in favor of being your personality. I'm all in favor of you going to your liberal friends and family if you have any, or if you're able to even go to them. I'm all in favor of you being the one that puts a grin on and just walks right in front of them and just awkwardly, no words at all, just gets in their face and goes, I'm all in favor of that. Now you got people out there talking about we gotta be the pillars and we gotta be the this and we gotta be what they run to, and oh, you know. Now I'm not a holier than thou person. If you want to be a holier than thou, go for it. But I'm not the place they're gonna come running to when they want a soft place to land. I'm gonna always be the one that says, well, I did tell you. Now, the good Lord always works in mysterious ways. You know, it's just the way the world works. A lot of people have forgotten to live life throughout this process as well. Everybody's just sitting there waiting on the phone just to blink and say one thing that's just like, oh. And it was never going to be like that. This is a rolling operation, and it's going to roll, right? There's going to be some big things, yes, that does solidify everything, but it wasn't ever going to be like just a hard stop and then like that. You know, that's why you've heard people throughout this time period go, nothing's happening, nothing's going to happen, nothing this, and then, oh, nothing can change if we don't see arrest. All those comments. That's lazy, and that's cognitive dissonance. That's people who don't want to lift a finger. That's people who don't want to contribute. That's people who don't want to be a part of the whole operation. They just want the birthday party. But it is happening. It had to happen this way. I mean, this is what's so funny is I talk to a friend all the time. We talk about this. 3 years ago it was, well, why would Donald Trump crash the economy on purpose? Well, if Donald Trump was still in power, then blah, 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 blah. Now look where we are. I mean, and so if people would apply the simple simplicities of life, the core principles of life, just everyday life. Life's full of ups and downs. We all have them. We all have bad days. We all have rainy days. We all have something. It's life. All right? You're going to have some bumps. You're going to have some bruises. You're going to have learning curves, learning experiences, etc. You're going to have some struggles in your life, but the struggle is what made you look back. If you were appreciative, you went on that mountaintop and you looked back down in that valley and said, you know what, I appreciate that valley I just went through because I appreciate this mountaintop view. But we have too many people who don't appreciate the mountaintop view because they didn't get down in here in the trenches where it mattered and got in the struggle with everybody. You know, struggling don't mean you're a failure. And too many people think that. The same thing out there, you got all these holier-than-thou podcasters. They think that you're wrong about one thing, that you're completely wrong about everything. That's not the case. It depends on your delivery. It depends on what you're saying. It depends on what it is. For example, those out there who always make predictions because they just want to have one massive prediction go right for them, and then all those people who flood to them going, oh, they were correct about the date of the arrest, or whatever it could be. Well, that's a dangerous thing as well, because there's no consistency there. Now, what the liberals haven't figured out yet is, because they got their heads so far up their rear ends, they could give their own selves a colonoscopy, right? They can give themselves a tonsillectomy. Some of them, their heads are so far up their rear ends, they could do their own body checks. What they haven't figured out yet is that the whole thing is not ever supposed to be about your president versus my president. It's supposed to be our president. Politics was never supposed to be politics. It was supposed to be a government that is small enough that we can manage it. We the people, all of us. It was never supposed to turn into what the United States of it. It's the U.S. Look at all the women with their lips puckered up and their plastic faces and all this other stuff. And there's a lot of them out there now. And I know some's going to get mad at me. That's fine. But we have materialized America so much that the young generations can't have conversations. They don't. Everything wants to be via a text message. Text. They don't want to call anymore. Don't want to have a real conversation anymore. We don't have real communication anymore. We have text, non-emotions. You cannot get to know someone via text message. All the young generations, they're taking selfies every 2 seconds. It's the same picture. Just take a selfie and send the same picture. We have so much stuff in America that is so materialized on, oh, you don't live in a 2-story house and 3 bedrooms and 3-car garage, and you ain't. We have materialized so much crap in America that everybody has all the priorities so far off base that no wonder it looks this way. And we still have drama and propaganda in the quote-unquote news. Even the good news sources out there like OAN and Newsmax, they are still surface level. They don't tell you anything. If that's the future, then I'm going to delete all my accounts. I'm going to tell you right now, all my accounts will disappear quicker than a cat can lick its rear end. If that's the future of just, we're going to stay in the same rigmarole. So every individual has going to have to take control of your emotions and your feelings. And you're going to have to unfollow a lot of these people. You got to hurt them where it counts. It's social media. It's not media at all. It's social only. And it's surface level drama, propaganda, and bullcrap. And it does not empower any one person. It don't empower anybody. It don't empower you to think. It don't teach you to think. It don't do any of those things. And until we change that with the younger generations, it's going to look like this. Because if you're 40 years old and older, this don't affect us in the long run. It does in another manner, like if we live to be 90, or if you're 40 and you live to be 90, well, the young generations are going to be what? In control of things. So yeah, it would in another manner on short scales, but it doesn't in the long term. And if you're doing what God commanded you to do, you're to pay it forward like the Native Americans think 7 generations out. So the liberals don't even think for this generation, the next generation. They don't even think because they don't even think. They look like they don't even have a brain. So until that changes, we can clean out everything, top to bottom. But until the thought process changes, until everybody's way of thinking changes, until everybody starts reading, studying, and knowing what you're supposed to know, it's going to look like this. And I don't want to be a part of it, personally, if that's the case. Because if it, again, it takes one takes two. Two builds up to 3, 4, etc. But too many people are still following all the riffraff. And there's a way to know who to follow, and that's consistency. Because I can tell you right now, it's going to sound braggadocious, and that's fine. I don't really care. But if I went away today, a lot of these platforms wouldn't exist. Because all they're doing is sending spies over and regurgitating things. You cannot purchase intelligence, ladies and gentlemen. You can't purchase it. And a lot of people are falling still for a lot of people out there who are doing nothing but regurgitating, and they're doing it for monetary gain or some kind of gain. All right. If my management could tell you how many things we have rejected and turned down and been propositioned, and you name it, you would understand. I say all that to say, because it builds up to what we're talking about. We have so many people out there who are so entitled, and they want titles, they want positions, and it's kind of like what I've been talking about. I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but you got to. Country music is just as corrupt in the system. And I know a lot of people don't want to talk about it because you feel like music is your escape. You feel like that's your way of escaping this noise, and you go to a noise that sounds joyful to you, but you don't know the people who are up here who make that noise, and it's a trap. So you're running right over to the same kind of people. Because you think the artist is free, and no, it's up here. And the reason why that matters is because that's another form of trickeration. And you're being deceived, and you're being tricked, and you don't want to listen to the very one who's been there and done that. But now a lot of people are speaking out. We have another big artist who's recently come out and said it. But it all ties in because of breaking that control over your mind, and the matrix, as we call it. So I try to refrain from all your watching a movie and all this, because the movie's still real. We are living, breathing, talking, walking, going through this. It's all an experience. But the movie's still real, but you still need to know how to break away from the control. And that's through consistency. And there's a reason why God, on a bigger picture, and I don't talk God too much because there's a lot of people out there who overuse God. They overuse Jesus. They overuse the Bible. They overuse Bible verses to fit into their agendas. But when you look at God as a whole, or a spiritual being as a whole, when you look at the bigger picture, God does work in mysterious ways, and everything works on a bigger timing. Look at things people forget about. On a daily basis, people forget about the birds out there building nests. Birds are still operating around you daily. A lot of animals are, but I like to use the bird because a lot of people forget to even listen to the bird whistling, the bird chirping, right? Because they have a beautiful sound, but they're building nests all around you. No, you're not commanding that bird to do that. That bird's doing that on its own natural habit. But who put that bird into place? Now, I'm pretty sure I'm smart enough that if I decided to build a watch, I think I could learn how to do that. It's tiny little bolts and tiny little screws, but I'm pretty sure that I could do that if I had the desire to do that. Someone built this watch. Seiko built this one. But whoever their builders were and are, someone built this watch. Who built the bird? So you hear all these atheists out there. They never can answer that. Who built the bird? Who commanded that bird? Who set that bird into motion to go build their nest? To know when to build their nest? To know when to build their nest. See, people forget about the simple things in life, but the simple things still show the bigger things, right? And God put me here at the moment. Look, I had billboard hits before I went viral. Billboard hits. You can verify it on the legendary Sammy Kershaw's page. All right, he posted the chart. He didn't know what he was doing way back then. Posted the chart. There I am above him on one week's chart. There it is, billboard. All right. And this is not a music conversation, by the way, because most people leave because, again, but I'm tying this in to show you. Music, knowledge, intelligence. You need to know this stuff. So, consistency matters. And the whole billboard thing, I was before that, and then God let me go viral August 24, 2022. And the world knows me, and I've built a base off of military laws and orders, and then federal laws and orders and how they paired. But look what was before that. And I have a #1 best-selling book that talks about how the industry, the country music industry, is just as controlled, if not worse, than the swamp, because they all link together, conglomerate and monopolies. And all that's being crumbled right now. The whole world is going through this massive reform. The whole world. And so it's important for everyone to always get to a, maybe use Sunday like I do, the day of rest, which I actually not resting on Sunday, but get to a day where you recalibrate and you bring yourself back to okay, maybe you had a rough week in your personal life as well, but also maybe you got to a point of confusion. Well, recalibrate. I'm your place to recalibrate. But I'm also telling you, hey, you don't need to leave here and go elsewhere, because there's a lot of people who are just wanting the wrong things. They want fame, fortune. They don't have an oath to keep. Consistency matters. Consistency. So, President Trump just put a post up. I don't know, it's been a couple days now. But it specifically says, the world will soon understand nothing can stop what's coming. Now, you'll have people out there, you'll have Republicans and the rhinos and the surface level normies, as we call them. They're going to say things like, he didn't mean to post that, and oh, he just does this. He posts a lot of things. I mean, you hear it all. Which should make you proud as a patriot, because you're part of the percentile that represents the percentile that was over in the Revolutionary War. There was only 1.7 to 1.9% of the whole population who fought during the Revolutionary War. If you go back and do the math based on the numbers we have, if you look at the numbers who are in the Army and the Navy, which also Marine Corps, and then you divide population into that, it wasn't that many people fighting for what we have right now. For what the liberals think that they know. They always quote the word Constitution, but they don't know anything about it. But the same Constitution that stemmed out of the Revolutionary War, same everything, the same foundation, the same Declaration of Independence, the same militaries, the same establishment, everything that stemmed from that. Only 1.7 to 1.9% fought during that time period. For what everybody got to what? Enjoy. So think about it. It's normally the fighters in the small percentile, and the ones who reap it are in the large percentile. It's always been that way. So if we want to have a bigger revolution, which we have enough, and it's pretty doggone big, but in order to flip it even quicker, people have to do what? throw down the drama, propaganda, the materialism, and go to what? Well, how does our nation function and operate? And then realize it was never supposed to be political. It was never supposed to be bringing everybody's drama and personal lives and personal preferences and personal beliefs into government. It was never supposed to look like that. And until everybody does that on both sides, it don't matter what the left's doing, you don't mimic the same thing they're doing. No matter how hard it is, don't mimic what they're doing. That's how you stand aside. But as of right now, Republicans are yelling for death and hangings and executions, and the left are. How do you separate that? You don't chant and root for death. That's the first thing. Punishment is one thing, but it's these slight little terminologies that have got to change with society. We should never want to reach a place where crap hits the fan. We should always seek peace first. Always. You can't just say that. You have to put that into plan. Now, there's going to be times when there's rebels, and there's always going to be something. But when you suppress it from the top, like President Trump, the peace through strength, when you show strength on the front and you suppress it that way, then it don't have a chance to rise and build up. But guess what we have? We have wusses in this nation and softies who will go down to the prisons and say that the person who maliciously murdered X amount of people, what? They have rights too. That's the attitudes we've had in the last 50 years. We have more people who vouch for the murderer than the person who was murdered. That's the stuff we have to change. And it's the same thing on the bigger scales. And we're going to get to that. I'm going to get to that in a minute, because I'm going to step on some toes today again. And don't care. You'll get over it. All right? Get you a rattletrap Band-Aid or something. So President Trump posted and he's holding a Q plus in his right hand, which actually is left on the screen, so on the right side of the screen. So it's his left hand, holding his hands like this, but out. Q plus in his left hand. So right looking at the screen, but not his right hand. Left hand. All right? Q plus. And then Gavin Newsom, a buddy of mine, texted me this morning, and Gavin Newsom had posted on his official truth, same photo, except his face, Q plus, with the same slogan, "The world will soon understand nothing can stop what's coming." So for all of you patriots, checkmark, victory, checkmark, validation. All right, you know it's central casting. President Trump has said that term over and over and over again. He does the tip of the spear, which is special operations. It's not Illuminati. All you low IQ people, especially if you're a Republican, conservative, if you think that's the Illuminati, then you don't have two IQ marbles to rub together to make a turd. You are a turd. All right? Stop saying that crap. You're only squandering and doing yourself an injustice, but also you're doing that to the military, especially all the special operators. All right, that's as far as I'm going to go today with my slanders. Now, Q is another thing. Q was something greater than the norm to give you something to chew on. But here's where people get in trouble with Q alone. Q is a clearance from the Department of Energy. I actually know someone with Q clearance. All right? They don't walk around saying, "I got Q clearance, and I know Q, and Q, 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 Q." They don't work like that. They also don't sit around on podcasts and act like they're some insider. You either are or you ain't. And if you are, you don't talk like that. So see, this is where people get mad. All them anons out there, they'll be on my butt. Boy, they're going to be, Derek Jonhson talking. Digital warriors, keyboard warriors, don't make you official. Sorry. But I'm not sorry. All right. Q's going to go away. Q will go away, but guess what's going to remain? Laws and orders are going to remain. Q is real. It's real. But you got to put it in the right place. And you got to be careful with it. And a lot of people are following people who think they are and they ain't. And all they are doing is an injustice to the actual people who are. Because the people who are not going to tell you that they are. They just are. AI is in the same kind of category. It's separate, but it's in another category. A lot of people are going to have to get sharpened on their skills, especially older people who are older than probably 60 right now, if they live to be 90, because AI is going to deceive a lot of people. All of us younger generations, we can adapt a little bit quicker. May not want to, may not like to, but we can adapt. All right, because we're in that age where I was the last, my generation was the last to have the Nokia cell phones, which we didn't even turn on because we didn't want our parents calling us. You didn't use your cell phone like you use it today, right? So I was that last generation where we didn't have internet and things like that like we do today. All right, and so we adapted to it. We do have our phones all the time now. We do have internet, all access, always, right? So I was that last generation. We can adapt. But even AI is going to be tricky because if you don't see it live, if you don't see it when it happens, it's going to be tricky, and you're going to have skill sets to be able to identify, is that real or is that AI? And so that's going to be tricky. It's not going away. There's a lot of good to it. There's a lot of downfalls, just like anything else in life. Everything has a good category and everything has a negative or a con category. So you got to be careful. But there's a lot of people out there who think they are and they ain't. And it just don't look like that. And see, the reason why I do what I do is, one, because I love it. Two, I asked God for another position outside the military to serve beyond my service. He granted that. Here I am. But I don't act bigger than I am, but I also don't act like, whatever that alternative would be. I don't even know what that would be. But I stay in my lane. I do what I'm supposed to do. But I also honor all those who are up here. And there's a lot of people that are on these notches above here, you're never going to know. Some don't want you to know. Some are not going to want you to know. Some are going to still be in their position, and you don't need to know. It's just what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to be a decent human being. You're supposed to contribute to society when and where you can, at whatever level you want, whether it's just your family, your friends, your neighborhood, your community, your town, your county, your state, your country. You get to decide that. But it's kind of like those people who go to missionary trips. They post way too many pictures for it to be about the mission. It looks more like they're building a resume for themselves. All right? There's some etiquette and protocol that needs to be put back also into everything. So let's move on. It sets all this up because what you're seeing right now, you're seeing a lot of normies, a lot of average folks out there who have not read, who have not studied. They don't have the depth, let's say. They don't have layers of intelligence and I'm not talking about intelligence material-wise. I'm talking about the capacity up here between these two ears right here. I'm talking about that kind of intelligence. They haven't read, they haven't studied, they haven't applied all the layers of what's currently in use right now. Just what's in use right now. They haven't. And so a lot of you can get tricked by your own friends because they may have a big title or they may have a long resume. And you can be deceived by listening to the wrong people, even in your own circles. Even in your own friends and family, you can be deceived. And how you know is you empower yourself. You don't rely on anybody but yourself. All right? Someone like me, I lead you to the water. I say, look, here's the water. I think the water's good. I think the water's fine. I think the water's drinkable. I'm going to drink from the water. You don't have to drink from the water. You can decide what you want to do. If you think it looks murky, if you think it looks dirty, if you don't think it's, consumable, then you make your own decision. I can't persuade you. I'm not going to persuade you. I'm not going to coerce you. Only you can decide that. All right? So, same thing with laws and orders right now. The whole time, this whole 3 years, all I've done to people is say, look, I know why I'm here. I know I was put here. All right? But my job's not to persuade you. It's not to coerce you. Here's the laws. Here's the orders. You don't have to like the law. You don't even have to like the orders. But this is the law. This is the order. You go read for yourself. Empower yourself. If you don't like the law, and if you don't like the order, then guess what you need to know first? You need to know the law first, and then that's how you make your voice more vocal. That's how you also strengthen your First Amendment, where you look intelligent when you're talking to someone who's a what? Lawmaker. Because if you go down there yelling, kicking, cussing, screaming, and looking all unintelligent, and looking like some of these other people do, they ain't not going to listen to you. They'll listen to the people on both sides of the aisle who present to them that they know what they're talking about. So that's why from the very get-go I said, hey, look, you don't have to like anything that I talk about. This is what's going on. This is how the law works. It's up to you to go read and study and apply to yourself. Because why would, quote-unquote, Joe do this? Why would, quote-unquote, Joe do that? Why would, there's so many of the this and that's that show you that there is most certainly a special operation taking place, pre-planned special operation by law. It's unique. It's different. You haven't seen it in your lifetime because it is unique and different. There's variables that's a part of it that have been used before as tactics and strategies in different kind of areas, and it's kind of like Easter egg hunting. You have a basket, and you may be someone who's OCD. You may be colorblind. I mean, it could be a lot of things. But let's say that you only want to pick the blue eggs and not the green eggs, if you know what the blue and the green are. If you're colorblind and blue is your green and green is your blue, then you may pick the green egg and like the green. But maybe you're someone who only likes a certain thing, and you're like, okay, and you put it in your basket, right? Your basket of life. Well, it's the same principle. See, a lot of people don't live by principles. So what's going on right now, August 31st, 2025, it's been in law way back, 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020. It's been a stepping ladder, and it's all building up, and you didn't need certain things in both at certain times until you needed it. But there's so many this and that's that outline what you're watching is unique, special, by laws and orders. And it sounds like a broken record to hear laws and orders, laws and orders, laws and orders. A lot of you listen to the same country music songs over and over and over, and they ain't nothing but deep state. So let's talk about Chicago. First off, let's talk about why my dad's generation says Chicago. Where's the R at? I always ask my dad, where do y'all get the R from? Chicago. Washington. Lee Corso on college game day was his last college game day yesterday, and he always says Washington. I'm like, where is it? Washington? Washington. Chicago. A lot of those old timers said Miami. They didn't say Miami. They said Miami. I don't know. Maybe it's cool. Maybe we should change some of our cities just to be fun. Chicago. All right. So let's talk about Chicago. So I've got the article pulled up here. Just going to read a little bit of what it says. So this is the mayor, I believe it is. Let's see, where did it go? Yeah, right here. No relation, thank God. But Brandon Jonhson, Mayor Brandon Jonhson. By the way, Johnson's one of the most popular names in the world. I think we're number 2 behind Smith. So a lot of times I'll be saying no relation. All right, it says this. So when asked during a news conference about federal agents who are presumably, quote unquote, taking orders, Jonhson replied, quote, "Yeah, and I don't take orders from the federal government." Well, that's how you get your butt arrested right there. All right, that's the first thing. So now I'm going to move to another article that ran on NPR, who have been hammered by President Trump. And by the way, that other article was off the Associated Press, the AP, and they're asking and begging for donations now. They have a pop-up that says donate. So that tells you CNN's been hammered. All right, they've been hammered by President Trump. They're now in a tiny little cubicle in the outskirts of Atlanta. CNN's been hammered. MSNBC's being hammered. NPR hammered. PBS hammered. All right. Now, and of course, Associated Press, who's been banned by President Trump, that's a war order only. The only way the press can be banned is a war order. That's 47 United States Code, Section 606. It's actually titled War Powers of the President. He can block, ban, terminate, whatever he needs to do. Internet, TV, radio, broadcast, etc. Can also control the narrative. All right. So that first article about the mayor was AP, and they got a little link now. It pops up, a little pop up. Donate now. Bye. All right. So they're good to use though for visuals like this. All right, to show you that they're fizzling, but they're also what they're saying, because you can use it against them because they're either speculation or they're still trying to mislead their people, which in this case of a military operation, military occupation, continuity government, that's sedition and that's treason to do so. All right. So if they're operating freely, let's say President Trump and them cut them free and said, all right, we've done this, done that, now you're cut free. If they're operating on their own, then they're still committing treason and sedition, all right, because of what they're saying. So this article here I'm about to read really quick. I'm not going to read the whole thing again, but it says, it's from NPR. An Army National Guard veteran says Trump's specialized unit is quite dangerous. Now, there was another one from June from NPR as well. And this one says, enlisting the National Guard in deportation is a, quote, single quote, dangerous path, end quote, says former chief. All right. And this was an interview. I'm going to read it first. This was an interview by NPR with a retired Major General, former acting Vice Chief of the National Guard Bureau, about President Trump federalizing the Guard for his deportation campaign. All right, now I'm going to read this, and you got to just listen. National Guard units, this is the host saying this, National Guard units are like a state's own emergency response team, often there to assist tornadoes, wildfires, and floods. They rescue people and clear debris. They also deploy abroad to fight in wars. Now President Trump has enlisted them to help in his deportation campaign. Over the weekend, he bypassed California Governor Gavin Newsom to federalize the National Guard in California to protect federal immigration agents carrying out deportations operations in Los Angeles. We have retired Major General Randy Manner on the line to talk about that. Then it says he was the acting vice chief of the National Guard Bureau during the Obama administration, which tells you everything you need to know. And it says, welcome to All Things Considered. All right, so the question to him was this. I just want to start by asking you, when you saw President Trump federalize the National Guard in this manner, what was your reaction? What do you think the implications of this are? All right. He goes, there's at least two primary unintended consequences for the average American, no matter whether you live in a blue county or a red county. First out the gate, that's gaslighting right there. All right. Straight out the gate. That's a gaslight comment. Because if you live in a red or a blue county, then guess what that means? America. Right? You don't, that's an unnecessary comment. He goes, he absolutely trying to intimidate the average peaceful demonstrator because most of the demonstrators are actually peaceful. That's false. That's number one, suppressing freedom of speech. The second one that we have to be very concerned about is this is also suppressing states' rights. A duly elected governor is elected by the people to guide the state, protect the people. And unfortunately, here we have a federal authority coming in and suppressing that governor and the people of a particular state. So those unintended consequences, it doesn't matter where you are in the political spectrum, they should absolutely alarm you and you should be concerned. All right, so all that right there shows you what I've been telling you from the start. And it's not about what I've been telling you, but I'm saying this from another angle. You've seen a few, not many, you've seen a few veterans attack me because they're low IQ. Has nothing to do with their service. Thank you for your service. Thank you for serving under a law you know nothing about. That's what I would have to say, because that's exactly what you look like if you're attacking me. If you got a problem with me, if you're attacking me, it's not about me. Most of these veterans make it more about me than I've ever made it about me. They make it more about their service than I've ever even talked about my service. I don't talk about my service. I don't have to. All right? I did what I was supposed to do. I raised my right hand. I did what I was supposed to do. Not taking away from you raising your right hand. I'm not taking away from your service. You're taking away from it. You're taking away from it multiple ways. If you attack me, you're taking away from your service. If you got a problem with me talking laws and orders, you're taking away from your service. You're taking away from it. Not me. If you don't know the laws and orders of which you raise your right hand under, you're taking away from your service. And it's also going to make you look bad to your friends and family because all this is unveiling. It's all in laws and orders. It has to be in laws and orders. If it weren't in laws and orders, then President Trump would look like a dictator to you who have a problem with him, whoever you are, whatever side of the aisle you are. If it wasn't a law and order there, then I wouldn't have a foundation to stand on. But because there are laws and orders there, I have a foundation. And that's why you got to know all the different Title 10s, all the different sections of Title 10. You got to know all the different sections under Title 32. You got to know all the different sections under Title 22. Probably need to know all those sections and how they apply, or you're going to look atrocious. I don't want you looking atrocious. Because at the end of the day, veterans who have attacked me, you know good and well, if we're sitting in a private room or wherever we are, we can get along on anything. We can respect each other's different beliefs and walk away not mad, upset, or anything. Because that's what we do when we're in service. So why don't you treat it that way when you're out? Why are you trying to be all holier than thou? Why are you trying to be better than someone? Oh, if you just stayed in the service a lot longer. Has nothing to do with anything. There's people in service who don't know what's going on. Prime example, a major general right here. A general showing his colors, showing his allegiance to Obama. You're not supposed to show allegiance. You're supposed to show allegiance to your nation, to your foundation, to our history, to the Declaration of Independence, to the Constitution first. And then our our oath of enlistment says what? I do solemnly swear to support and defend, right? So let's just read it word for word. I'm gonna pull it. I can do it word for word, but I'm gonna show you where it says. I'm gonna show you another thing it says. Oath of enlistment. I'm gonna show you something else. The ironclad oath. See, a lot of people don't know about the ironclad oath. I, dear Jonhson, do solemnly swear. See, this is why veterans don't know their history, and it's important because Abraham Lincoln is someone that the left, the liberals, I'm pointing whichever way the camera sometimes flips it the wrong way, but the liberals quote Abraham Lincoln as a great president. Some of them, not all of them, but some of them quote him until they found out that Abraham Lincoln used the military to it was a hard time for a lot of people back then. It was a hard time on both sides of the aisle, the Union, the Confederate. It was a hard time. But Abraham Lincoln in 1862 is the one who added this phrase to our oath of enlistment. So if you were National Guard, you raise your right hand under Title 32, still says the same thing. But if you're active duty or reserve component, you raise your right hand under Title 10, which we're about to get to, about the whole point of this whole podcast. All right? So, let's pull it up here. Now watch. Now you can go find the history of the oath all the way back to 1775 and what it said all the way up. I found that link somewhere on the .gov or .mil site. I'll post it when I find it again. But this is the current oath. I, and you'll state your name, do solemnly swear or affirm. It puts that in parentheses. We always say swear, but you can say affirm depending on who the commander is. All right, that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same, and that I will do what? Obey the orders of whom? The President and the officers appointed over me, so help me God. And in parentheses, it'll tell you, Title 10, U.S. Code, Act of May 5th, 1960, replacing the wording first adopted in 1789 with the amendment effective October 5th, 1962. Now, what they don't tell you on that, that's Army.mil. Well, what they don't tell you on that is all the different times little things change. Like the foreign and domestic. Foreign and domestic was added in 1862. Had nothing to do with foreign nations. Nothing to do with that. So a lot of the attacks are coming from people who have military-industrial complex, who think their service is being taken away. That's why President Trump has been so delicate with all this, is because all these wars from Korea to Afghanistan were all man-made. They were all man-created. They were all bureaucracy. They were all about the swamp. They were about the lobbyists. They were about the defense contracts. So no one's taken away from your service. So see, this is where you got to listen. And too many people hear to react versus listen to respond. No one's taken away from anyone's service. You take away from your service by your attitudes when you don't listen. We can't be all about just one person, all about them, without having a foundation and a basis of why and who and what they are and what they stand for. Like this general here is completely doing what you're not even supposed to do as a general. Now, he can have an opinion, but when you reach general status, you got to be very, very careful with that terminology I'm talking about, with that verbiage. You got to be very careful that you don't persuade or coerce someone based off of your opinion, your stance. And this right here, this whole article sounds like that. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I'll post it later where you can read it. But I'm breaking it down where you don't read it the wrong way either. So he says it's important to note that the National Guard is not trained on a ready-to-go situation for doing civil disturbance. It requires additional training on literally sitting in the armory and working things out. That's a stupid comment, first off. That don't even tell you anything. But what you've been seeing, when I would post all these military aircraft when you started knowing about me in 2022, 2023, 2024, when I was posting all those military aircraft, you'd see some people in the comment, oh, here comes another stupid aircraft. Those stupid aircraft was all that training. They were getting all their coordinates. I was seeing helicopters landing in downtown Nashville, Blackhawks, in streets. You saw it. Some of you saw it. Those of you who saw it, you know what you saw. Helicopters. You saw the Marine Corps already in California 2 and 3 years ago. They were landing Ospreys in neighborhoods. Go look up what an Osprey is and go imagine an Osprey landing in your neighborhood. They've already been active across the nation. You've seen the National Guard all over on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Not just their weekend training. That's why when you saw veterans in the comments, oh, if Derek Jonhson would have stayed in longer, he'd have known they're just training. You are what's wrong with America. It's all about you. You've made it more about you than it's about me. If Derek Jonhson would have stayed in longer. No, if you would have known your laws and orders, you would look like a dummy right now. One of those particular people has on their profile right now, one of them, has on there, oh, if the judges would go by the statutes in the federal codes, and you were in my comment box trying to deter people from knowing the law, and now on your profile, oh, if the judges only, there's that 6th grade education level in America. Only you can change that. Only you can change it, people. So all that military-industrial complex has carried over to where we are now. Being a veteran does not make you a good person. See, what happened to me was I go viral, and because I am a veteran, people attach the veteran thing first. I know what I know because I read, study, and have the experience and have worked in some situations, all right, outside of military. Plain and simple. But even then, it don't matter. It doesn't even matter about that. It don't matter about my resume, nothing about. You can be the lowest level individual out there with nothing on your resume. But if you have the IQ, and if you have the wits, and if you also have the initiative, you can read, study, and know. It don't make you authentic, and it don't make you an official capacity, no, but you can know. That's that hairline that you have to know of being a civilian and knowing that, okay, I can know it, but you don't go act like you're somebody that you're not. Same thing with the military personnel. Here's someone who should know, and look what he's saying, and he's polar opposite. He's the polar opposite, and should know, and more than likely does know, but he just, what? He's either jealous, or he's jealous because his life didn't take him where it didn't take him. Maybe he wanted to leave as a general and be a politician, or maybe he wanted to be a governor. Maybe his ambitions may have stopped, and then his jealousy has picked up where his ambitions stopped. So being a general doesn't mean that they're a good person. It doesn't mean that anything. They can be fully tabbed out. They can be fully bad. Everything. Doesn't mean they're a good person. Doesn't mean they have your best interests. Being a good person means that a good person is a good person. So see, there's been over almost 300 commanders relieved of duty since June 2017. 300 commanders? That's not lower enlisted. That's your officers. Oh, almost 300 commanders since June 2017. They are all highly decorated. They're all fully decorated. They are all decorated. Any kind of decoration status you can think of. Their resumes are top to bottom immaculate. Military language, military everything. But they're being relieved of duty. They're all being busted for something. See, so just your imagery alone, it's like Instagram. Instagram is photos and videos only. So by looking at someone's photos and videos, you can think, man, they are happy. They are, oh boy, look at them. They're always smiling. It's a snapshot. It's a photo. It's a video. It don't show you their everyday life. Look at the veterans out there committing suicide. Now the numbers are down to 17 a day. All right, according to President Trump's recent post, 17 a day, which is 17 too many. But if you go look at the VA stats and the studies they've done, well, we're talking about the VA now. So you either after what I tell you, you either got to take arms with the VA or you got to what? Go, man, the VA study. That's terrible, but we got to study this. So you either got to not agree with them and say that's wrong, or go, well, the VA is the official who takes care of veterans. According to the VA, the most recent extensive study they've done, 85% of veteran suicide. So 85% of that 17 a day. Now, back when it was 22 a day and 29 a day is when they actually did the study. So when it was a higher number, 85% of the 22 and 29 a day, of the ones who left notes or messages to their friends and family and loved ones, of the ones who left notes, 85% of veteran suicide was because another veteran made them feel that their service was invaluable because they didn't deploy, or they didn't see hostility, or they didn't do what that veteran did. That's a hell of a note to walk around with right there. So all you veterans who attack me, that's a hell of a note to walk around with, because their bloods are on your hands. If you got that attitude, their bloods are on your hands. So you probably want to remove all those 1-800 suicide hotlines, because that's all imagery. You show you don't care. You don't care about other veterans. It's all about you. It's all about imagery. It's about status for you. That's a hell of a note to walk around with. To know that 85% of veteran suicide, of that 17 a day, 85% are committing suicide because you made them feel that their service was invaluable. That is one hell of a note to walk around with. Their blood's on your hands. When service was never about war and killing people. If we have to go to it, great. We'll take care, and like Toby Keith's song, we'll put a boot in your ass and we'll kick your ass at the end of the day. If you have to. But all these attitudes out there of rooting for war and chanting for death and rooting for it, that is where America has gone wrong. It's where it says, you can have your opinion, you can split that hair how you want to split it, but that is where America went wrong right there. There's a hairline difference of having to versus the alternative that these bureaucrats created, the deep state and the swamp, all for their money games. Money, money, money. The lust of money. Materialism. They all live in their mansions. They live behind their walls, and then they tell you that walls are wrong. They tell you that guns are the problem. And they all have lived behind them. We have such a foundational problem in America. We have such a problem with people's thinking. And that's got to stop. So this other veteran, Army National Guard veteran, says Trump's specialized unit is quite dangerous. Now, they're veteran status, so they have a right to their opinion. All right. But this proves to you not all veterans know the laws that they served under. All right. So let's get to his comment. And it's a real short interview because his IQ is short. So it says, in another sign of how he intends to expand the military's role in domestic affairs, President Trump on Monday signed an executive order directing the Secretary of Defense to create a quick reaction force within the National Guard that could be deployed anywhere in the U.S. in response to, and they put civil disturbances in quotations. The order calls for a creation of an online portal where Americans with law enforcement or other relevant backgrounds and experience can apply to join federal entities tasked with ensuring public safety and order in Washington, D.C., and other cities where public safety and order has been lost. This order does not specify who would command those forces or what form such a specialized unit would take. That right there takes the cake. That shows you right there, that one line out of this whole recent, this was August 27th, so 4 days ago. The order does not specify who would command those forces or what form such specialized unit would take. This is where knowing the law comes in handy, and the orders who have already been put into place long before this order they're talking about here. So here's another excerpt, and we're going to get to his comment. National Guard members are under control of individual states' governors, and a president cannot deploy them unilaterally. The exception is Washington, D.C., which is not a state and does not have a governor. The president commands the D.C. National Guard. That is so hilarious. So this is the quotation. This is from the Army veteran, the National Guard veteran. Quote, "The way that the laws around military and policing work is that federalized troops cannot be used for law enforcement." Way to go, Christopher Purdy! Misrepresenting the military there, bud. But since the D.C. National Guard is technically not federalized but controlled by the president, that would be a workaround this issue. That's his quote. Well, let's just read what the law says there, Christopher Purdy. Well, here's Joint Publication 3-07, Joint Doctrine for Military Operations Other Than War. I'm going to read from this. Military operations other than war. MOOT W, so we'll do it like that, MOOTW, focusing on deterring war, resolving conflict, promoting peace, and supporting civil authorities in response to domestic crises. MOOT may involve elements of both combat and non-combat operations in peacetime conflict and wartime situations. It goes on to tell you that in MOOT, political considerations permeate all levels, and the military may not be the primary player. All right? And it says on down, however, the purposes of conducting MOOT may be multiple, with the relative importance or hierarchy of such purposes changing or unclear. And it goes on long. That's one. Now, let's go over to, this is a government publishing. This is specifically for civil affairs. All right, you type in Title 10 and your Control F, and it says specifically. In order to enable more continuous and robust civil affairs support of full-range military engagement, security cooperation, irregular warfare, and other missions, special operations missions, including for regionally aligned forces, building partnership capacity and persistent engagement, conduct a Department of Defense directed review of how supported command planners and budgeters, as well as civil affair commands, should build future requirements using Title 10, Section 12304, letter B, funding, as Hope recommends in his paper. This includes how OCO funds may be available on a limited short-term basis. If necessary, conduct a wider Department of Defense review of legal programming and budgetary authorities, mechanisms, and other sources. Obtain congressional approval for appropriate Title 10 revisions per review. Well, let's just go read Title 10, Section 12304. Selected reserve and certain individual ready reserve members ordered to active duty other than during war or national emergency. Authority, notwithstanding the provisions of Section 12302A or any other provision of law, when the President determines that it is necessary to augment the active forces or that it is necessary to provide assistance referred to in subsection B, he may authorize the Secretary of Defense and the Secretary of Homeland Security with respect to the Coast Guard when it is not operating as a service in the Navy without the consent of the members concerned to order any unit and any member not assigned to a unit organized to serve as a unit of the Selected Reserve or any member in the Individual Ready Reserve mobilization category as designated as essential under regulations prescribed by the Secretary concerned under their respective jurisdictions to active duty. Well, there, National Guard veteran Christopher Purdy, you don't know shit from Shinola. You just shit on your service. I tried to refrain from a slang word today, but I can't, because you just doo-dooed all over your service. Because you don't even know the laws and the orders of which you raise your right hand to. Or maybe it's because this is Title 10, you didn't raise your right hand to Title 10. Maybe you should go read what active duty and reserve components raise their right hand to, because Title 10 just told you straight up that yes, the President can most certainly put the troops in law enforcement. That's exactly what that just said. And then letter B, as you just read in that, government publishing, joint publication, joint publications, joint command, joint. Not the joints that Willie Nelson participates with and Snoop Dogg and some people out there. Joint publication, joint, federal, military, joint, also other commands. Could be all the different branches. It depends on what applies. Let's look at letter B. Support for responses to certain emergencies. The authority under subsection A includes authority to order a unit or a member to active duty to provide assistance in responding to an emergency involving 1, a use or threatened use of a weapon of mass destruction, which could be nuclear as well, all right, or number 2, a terrorist attack or threatened terrorist attack in the United States that results or could result in significant loss of life or property. Now, this is why some people know when you leave something open, let's say you're married, all right, and you have a credit card. You're the primary user, but you put your wife as a secondary user. Do you know that the secondary user is not held accountable if the secondary user went and ran money up on that credit card? Well, let's just say that the primary was a male and the secretary is a female. And let's say the primary ran off with another woman. And just ran off and said, I'll worry about the divorce later. Do you know that the secondary can use that credit card and put all kinds of crap on there and they're not held accountable? That's why you probably should do what? You probably should take care of business and take care of your matters before you do something stupid or irrational, right? This is why, quote-unquote, Joe, leaving all those executive orders alone that President Trump put into place, quote-unquote, Joe didn't terminate certain executive orders, quote-unquote Joe continued certain executive orders that don't make sense. There's a category of those he left open. If he was real, he wasn't. But for the people that thought that, there's a category of executive orders that he left open, didn't terminate, didn't revoke, didn't rescind. And then there's another category of executive orders with national emergencies, 8 of them, that quote-unquote Joe continued that don't make sense. That all apply to right now. And to why veterans like old Christopher Purdy here on a big platform is looking pretty stupid right now. Now, I know people don't like the word stupid, but if you use it in the right context, it applies. This is an Army National Guard veteran who literally just quoted that the way that the laws around military and policing work is that federalized troops cannot be used for law enforcement. But the D.C. National Guard is technically not federalized, but controlled by the president. That will be a workaround this issue. Ain't what the law says. And then look at this law right here. This is the one that brings the table down. You've heard me talk about it. 1, Executive Order 13912, March 27, 2020. President Trump federalized 1 million reserve components to active duty. That order has not been terminated, rescinded, revoked. It's still open. It's still active. That invoked Title 10, Section 12302. Now, you just heard this right here in 12304 say, notwithstanding the provisions of Section A of 12302. This is why every Title 10 section matters, and every Title 32 section matters. They're all different, and they all apply differently to different portions of the military. Now, let's watch this. So you got to keep in mind, you've heard me like a broken record, Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. All of these orders are in that first 180 days. So we're going to get to that in a minute. But first, EO 13912, March 27, 2020. Here it is. I'm going to read it word for word. Executive Order 13919, April the 30th, 2020. Still open, still active, not revoked, not rescinded, not terminated. President Donald John Trump. By the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 12304 of Title 10. That sounds like a song right there. And having determined that it is necessary to augment the regular armed forces of the United States for a named operational mission, specifically the enhanced Department of Defense counter-narcotic operation in the Western Hemisphere, I hereby order as follows. Activation authority. The Secretary of Defense is directed to order to active duty for not more than 365 consecutive days. Very important. Any units and any individual members not assigned to a unit organized to serve as a unit of the selected reserve under the jurisdiction of the Secretary of Defense not to exceed 200 selected reservists at any one time as he considers necessary. Now that consecutive word is very important. You'll hear people say, oh, 365 days, that's a year, that's already done. No, consecutive. 365, that means that the unit can't stay, it can't be the same unit on 365 consecutive days. Meaning that, okay, that another unit, same unit, it's a relief. Meaning like, okay, if they're tired and it's not whatever it is, all right, we got relief. Send them in. Rotational. And they may not be needed. Also, the mission may be accomplished in one place, and then, all right, let's plan, strategize, and then move them. You got to move them here and move them there. Executive Order 13919. So look at, see, there's a prime example. So if you're hating on me and you're mad at me, as if you're a veteran and you're mad, then you just don't know your laws and orders. Just like this veteran, it's published on NPR.org that President Trump's already hammered, for one. All right? And then two, looking atrocious. Don't even know the laws and the orders. So now let's go to Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550. I'm going to read it again, and then we're going to tie all these in. Reports and briefings on use of military force and support of partner forces. Not later than 180 days after December the 20th, 2019, and every 180 days thereafter, the President shall submit to the Congressional Defense Committees, the Committee on Foreign Relations of the Senate, and Committee on Foreign Affairs of the House of Representatives, a report on actions taken pursuant to the authorization for use of military force against those countries or organizations described in such law, as well as actions taken to command, coordinate, and participate in the movement or the accompany of the regular and irregular forces. That's very key. That's all your forces. That covers all of your forces, regular and irregular, of any foreign country or government when such forces are engaged in hostilities or in situations where imminent involvement in hostilities is clearly indicated by the circumstances during the preceding 180-day period. So they got all bases covered. First 180 days, every 180 days, and the preceding 180 days. There's no loopholes. The other reason why that's important is this. It says right here, codification. This section was enacted as a part of the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2020 as not a part of the War Powers Resolution. Meaning this is a specific operation that Congress approved. You remember the joint publication 3-07 I read from first? And remember the government publishing where it says, obtain congressional approval for appropriate Title 10 revisions per this review, civil affairs, all right? And then you have what? Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, codification, telling you that this is a part of the National Defense Authorization Act, meaning the defense budget. Who approves that? Congress. Title 50, Congress. Title 50, Secretary of Defense. Title 10, President. Title 10, Uniform Code of Military Justice. Title 10, Military Law. Title 50, Secretary of Defense. Title 50, Congressional approval, Congress. It's already been approved by Congress. And that codification line is telling you this is not a part of the War Powers Act, meaning it's going to be there in 10 years, in 20 years, in 30 years. It's an operation. And then in the very bottom of it, all on one page, it's just one little quick scroll, executive documents. Delegation of authority under Section 1285 of the National Defense Authorization Act for the year 2020. Memorandum of President. Memorandum for the Secretary of Defense. Never before has a quote-unquote president, now that Joe wasn't real, for you patriots, you know this, for the people who are watching that don't, Joe wasn't real. It was a puppet government, government exile. It's a World War II tactic. Just because you've never heard of it, don't mean it doesn't exist. All right? Never before has a president delegated authority to a Secretary of Defense of the previous president, which shows you that Joe was civil affairs only, which is a puppet government. It's a World War II tactic. It's all been done before. Those have been done before, all right, in World War II. It says, by the authority vested in me as president by the Constitution and the laws of the United States of America, including Section 301 of Title III United States Code, I hereby delegate to the Secretary of Defense the authority and functions vested in the President of Section 1550 on the use of military force and support of partner forces to the Congress. That would be, to the average American, that would be Joe Biden relinquishing his authority as President and Commander-in-Chief to the Secretary of Defense, the power and authorities vested in the President of 1550. Who was the President December the 20th, 2019? President Donald John Trump. The Secretary of Defense is directly under the whom? The President when it comes to military. All right? That is saying that quote-unquote Joe is not president, he is not commander-in-chief, he relinquishes his power and authority to the president of 1550. And then it's to the Secretary of Defense and the Congress. Well, Congress has already proved this, because guess what the title of the executive document says? Delegation of authority under Section 1285. 1285 is 1550. That's your bigger number. Of the National Defense Authorization Act for the fiscal year 2020. That's when that defense budget was passed, December the 20th, 2019. Congress passed it. Guess what the Democrats were in control of at that time? The House of Representatives. So all these troop movements right now, everywhere across the country that you've seen from that date forward, especially during the occupation, heavy occupation, everything you've seen, all the National Guard, all the laws and orders, President Donald John Trump. And it was passed by a Democrat-controlled House and Republican Senate, December the 20th, 2019. It is bipartisan. That is why when I watch people or people send me clips and stuff, I'm just laughing my rear end off. There are so many quote-unquote podcasters, especially the normie ones, they have no idea what's going on. And everyone should cancel them. They should be canceled, but that's up to the people. But if it were me and I was commander, they'd be wiped out. Not them personally, but their accounts would be wiped out. They'd be gone. Now, let's read why old Christopher Purdy looks even more dumb. All right, Joint Publication 3-57. You've heard me read it before. All right, July 9th, 2018. It's page 46 of Joint Publication 3-57. All right, they have this only available right now on a certain site. It's a .org that houses all of the publications. But it is authentic, it is real. All right. So, per the Posse Comitatus Act and the Department of Defense regulations, the United States is generally prohibited from employing Title 10 United States Code, Department of Defense forces to provide direct military involvement to enforce the law of the United States unless expressly authorized by the Constitution or Congress. That one paragraph just put old Christopher Purdy and the Major General, both of those veterans, in their places. It just showed their allegiance to Obama and or whoever Purdy's allegiance to. But the general showed his allegiance to Obama, the deep state, the swamp. It has nothing to do with the military, has nothing to do with Title 10, has nothing to do with Title 32, has nothing to do with anything that the law shows. They are operating on their personal belief, their personal opinion, their personal low IQ. And then they're also their personal either desires, ambitions, or whatever it may be. Because they don't know the law. Because this says right here, that line, this paragraph, I'm going to read it again. When you go back and read him again, it says, the way the laws around the military and policing work is that federalized troops cannot be used for law enforcement. Per the Posse Comitatus Act and Department of Defense regulations, the United States is generally prohibited. That means that, yes, normally they are, from using Title 10 Department of Defense, that would be your active duty. That would be all like your Marine Corps going into California. All right, Department of Defense Forces, Title 10, which is presidential authority. Title 10 is your Uniform Code of Military Justice, which is military law. Title 10, Chapter 47, that's your all military law, your UCMJ. All right, now go back to your oath of enlistment. What does it say? According to what? Regulations in the what? Uniform Code of Military Justice. I will obey the orders of the President and the officers appointed over me according to regulations and the Uniform Code of Military Justice. That's Title 10. Title 10, Chapter 47. That's the whole chapter. UCMJ. Employing Title 10 DOD forces to provide direct military involvement. Not indirect, not supporting them. direct military involvement to enforce the law of the United States unless what? Expressly authorized by the Constitution or Congress. Well, guess what Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550 is? That is your congressional approval. That was your National Defense Authorization Act of 2020. All these laws are still open. They are not terminated, revoked, rescinded. The executive orders with the national emergencies. Your national emergency is how a president can use the military. That is your Chapter 33 of your Title 50. You got to go read how a president can use the military. That's where Congress screwed up in 1973. In 1973, Congress thought they were putting limitations on the president by what he could and couldn't do with the military, and they backfired on them. That's exactly. President Trump has used the law against the deep state, against their own rhetoric, against their own verbiage, against their own, whatever you want to call it, lust to be in power and stay in power and trick and deceive the people. President Trump took all their laws and orders and used it against them in a good way to not only clean out the U.S., clean out all the crime, clean out all the streets for the homeless, but also drain that swamp. The bureaucrats and people like this Major General who just use the military as a crutch, as a hey, this is what I did, hey, look at me. This Christopher Purdy dude, who it says in here that he has a network, we're not going to give it any kind of credit, all right, because he don't deserve that, all right. It just says about protecting democracy. Here's a veteran who doesn't even know what Article 4, Section 4 of the United States Constitution says. We are a republic. We are not a democracy. And if you knew anything about the Federalist Papers number 10 and number 14, our founding father, how hard is this for people? Our founding father, the father of the Constitution, James Madison, wrote Federalist Paper 10 and 14, and he specifically says how democracies are dangerous. So I'm not going to apologize for saying that is how stupid these people are. And anyone who believes like that. To say we're protecting democracy. We're not a democracy. Our founding. And these same people will say, oh, we got to protect the Constitution. I'm pretty sure Article 4, Section 4 says we're a republic, not a democracy. And then you go to Federalist Papers, and the importance of that is this. The Declaration of Independence was July the 4th, 1776. All right. Then you had the Articles of Confederation, which was our first Constitution after the Revolutionary War, our first attempt at it. November the 15th, 1777. Then James Madison and the boys, we'll call them, they get together and they say, well, we'll just wad it up and we'll restart all over. All right. They were going to amend it and just redraft it, but they didn't. They just said, all right, we're going to start all over. They wrote the Constitution. James Madison, the father of the Constitution, the main writer, the main one who did all the writing, he also is the main one who wrote the Bill of Rights, all right, your first 10 amendments. He drafted that where there was no discrepancy. There was no loopholes or discrepancies. All right. Well, let's do your math here. The Constitution was drafted and written September the 17th, 1787. It was enacted, though, put into action on March the 4th, 1789. Which is why March the 4th was our original inauguration date. It wasn't January the 20th. It was March the 4th. All right, so it was written September the 17th, 1787. It was enacted on March the 4th, 1789. In between that, James Madison, John Jay, and Alexander Hamilton had 85 Federalist Papers, just those three alone. In between the writing and the enacting, of why and how and all the things that would give you, like if you were someone who needed more assurance or you needed more clarity or you need whatever it is that you needed. The people back then, those Federalist Papers were saying how great the Constitution was going to be for our nation. It was just a reinforcement, reemphasis, clarity, everything. And in those is where James Madison, the father of the Constitution, specifically wrote how dangerous democracies are. And here we are, still have people who sit and use the term democracy. When President Trump uses the word democracy, it's in a smart-ass way. When you know the laws and orders of what's going on, when you know everything, he's saying, I'm the one who's more doing this, and I'm the one doing it. He's saying it in a smart aleck way because we've destroyed the bureaucrats, we have destroyed the deep state, we have destroyed their little system they established for themselves. You can't get any more clear. Everything that's taking place right now, Chicago ain't blocking crap. This is all showing you the resetting of all of the laws and the orders. Everything. You got to know that. Straight out the gate. 2017 to 2021 was a resetting of the legislative branch. 2021 to 2025 was a resetting of the executive branch. Right now you're seeing judge this, judge that, judge this. Judge did this, appeals court that, district court this, circuit court this. 4th Circuit, 5th Circuit, 6th Circuit, 7th Circuit. District court, appeals court, court, judge, judge this, judge that. It's all about the judicial branch. You're looking at the laws and the orders being reemphasized. You're seeing all the different people. You're seeing all these different things. All right, you're seeing a lot of things take place. That's resetting laws and orders. You don't have to like it. You don't have to like anything, but that's what's happening. You should like it, and you should want to like it. And it's also busting all these lobbyists, defense contractors, all these people with entitlement, titles. They think they're better than you. They think they're holier than thou. They don't speak to you like I do. I'm the most attacked person out there, and I'm the one who sits all the time. I'm like, well, I'm not hiding from anybody. Not in my face. My name is my birth name. You don't have to like the laws and orders, but, hating me don't change the laws and orders. Attacking me don't change them. Attacking me just proves you're showing your colors. You're showing what your allegiance is to, and you're also showing that you're the reason why we're draining the swamp. You are the swamp. If you're attacking me, you're the swamp. No matter who you are, you're the swamp. Or you're just too dumb to pour piss out of a bucket. You're one or the other. You're not anything else. Because that right there, those two articles alone of the general and then this veteran, they don't know the laws at all. So when you go back and then you read this other over here, where was it? Let me see, what was I reading? It was one of those I was going to put another emphasis on again. Let's see, where did it go? Which one was it? Well, so your section 12304. See, there's layers of Title 10 and there's layers of Title 32, and it depends on how the president needs and what he needs from a state. So when you hear a governor or a mayor or whoever, it doesn't matter who it is. When you hear a governor or a mayor, when you hear people say that the governor has control of their National Guard, if the governors have full and complete control of their National Guard, end all, do all, say all, we'd have had power-tripping governors by now. And Alabama, ironically, is a state that actually tried to use the National Guard against the federal government. Now, that's the 70s maybe. All right. That didn't work out too well. And we're talking about a very conservative state. We're talking about the deep South, Alabama. All right. I can assure you right now, Chicago and the state of Illinois ain't going to do jack diddly doo-doo when it comes to President Donald John Trump. So all that stuff is a distraction piece in another manner. If you're a patriot, well, you're a patriot, you stand alone. But that's why Republicans and conservatives don't need to look like liberals. You need to know the laws and the orders of what President Donald John Trump is using. Now, it ain't my president versus your president. It's not supposed to be that. But during this time period, when you're a Republican and conservative, you look just as atrocious for saying anything outside of what the law says and what the orders say, because that's exactly what President Trump has to use and stand on, or it does and would look like a dictatorship, and it's not. And here's 3 different articles that all tie in. Chicago saying, oh, I don't have to listen to the federal government. You're going to. Whether you want to or not, or it doesn't matter, you're going to. That's the first thing. The General is showing allegiance to Obama, showing that it's telling you, the people, that it could be a general, it could be a judge, the highest level judge. It don't matter who it is. If they don't know the laws and the orders and how they're prescribed on paper, they could be just as wrong, just as guilty, showing allegiance, whatever it may be. Same thing with this veteran here. Specifically quotes that the military cannot be used. Specifically says that the way the laws, the way that the laws around military and policing work is that federalized troops cannot be used for law enforcement. This is a guy who would have swore in, if he never did active duty, if he was always National Guard, he swore in under Title 32, and he could have been someone who read all the Title 32, knew all Army Regulations 670-1 and everything, but could have left out studying Title 10 and studying joint publications, which is titled, JP 3-57 is actually titled Civil-Military Operations. And it says specifically, per the Posse Comitatus Act and DOD regulation, the U.S. is generally prohibited. Generally. That's a key word. This is why so many people have lost the English language and terminology. I was talking to a friend yesterday. When I was in school, remember the old wooden desk? They're all in one. It had a wooden seat, and it had a little arm that came up and a little wooden thing. And you had a little square hole where you put your books in. You remember those desks? Remember those people? That's how old we are, right? It's bad when a guy like me, 42 years old, can say, remember when? And it felt like, Well, remember those old desks? They look like dinosaurs. It's like, they are dinosaurs, ancient, but they look that way. And you had your little box, and then the teacher would go down the aisle, right, of your chairs, your desk, and they make each student read a paragraph out of the book, right? Well, you found out quick who could and couldn't read, and this ain't knocking dyslexic people, nothing like that, but you found out who could and couldn't read. You found out people who skipped over words, right? You found out people who didn't put what? Emphasis on what they're reading, like expressions and tones, and, you found out quick. Now, I don't agree necessarily that, it's not fun to read in public when you don't want to. It'd be like a lot of you who don't like to publicly speak and someone pulling you up on the stage and you're like, I get that too. But at the same time, it could break you. You may actually love reading out loud or reading to, whatever it could be, and you found out you actually did and it broke you of stage fright or whatever it may be. Well, I remember it used to get on my nerves all the time when a kid would go, Joe went down the road and he took a left turn on Elm Street and he turned down here on Pine Street and he stopped at the stop sign and there was a guy on the corner and the guy was just sitting there and the guy ended up being naked though, and no expression. Didn't stop at the period, exclamation point, question mark, nothing like that. Just And my thing is like, okay, if you're in a situation like school where you're not getting out of it and you're in there, then give it all you got while you're there. Now, we're due for bad days, sleepy days, and all these other, sure. But when you're in something, you're in it. You might as well enjoy it while you're there. That's my attitude. So I'm like, Joe went down the street and he turned on Elm Street. Then he went down the road and he turned on Pine Street. He looked over down the corner of Pine Street and there was a dude who was naked. That's how you're supposed to read, especially if it has an exclamation point there. You're supposed to put an emphasis on the dude was naked, right? You're supposed to show expression, tones, textures, substance. That's what we're lacking in the United States of America. We have people who don't even know terminology. We have people who don't know definitions, the index, the glossary, just the definitions alone. Which those were the fun tests. Everybody remembers in school we had definition tests. Those were fun because you're like, oh, this is memorization. Right? If you have a good memory, ace. Versus a calculus problem, you can't memorize that. You got to know how to work through it. All right? I accelerated in Cal all the way up to Cal 4. Trigonometry, etc. I loved it because my brain operates that way. I understand the people who don't. But again, terminology. We all have to communicate. We all have to talk to each other. All right? Communication is very important. That's why some people get mad. Oh, he hurt my feelings, or he said I was stupid, and he said, well, I mean, stupid is as stupid does, but then again, stupid games get stupid prizes, right? If you're looking that way, don't look that way. You don't want to be treated a certain way, don't act a certain way. Because people like me are going, hey, put all this aside. This is what it says. You don't have to like what it says, but this is what it says. If you don't like it, you need to still know it, because if you don't like it, you need to know it where you can do what? Utilize your First Amendment, what? Accordingly to the way you want to utilize it. That's how we all do move forward. That's how we all do get along. Is you don't knock people, but when you come in there, oh, you didn't serve long enough, you can't know this, and da-da-da-da-da, and you don't have this on your resume, and this, that. Well, how do I know it and you don't? How do all of you with your long DD-214s and all your combats and all your this, how do you not know? See? So you only make yourself look dumb. Whoever you are, if your resume is longer than Jennifer Aniston's boyfriend list, if that's you, if you're DD-214, if you're so decorated and you're such a hero, then how come you don't know anything? How come you looking like a zero? I'm here to help you. I mean, let's just be honest. I mean, I know what I know because of certain reason. So see, when people read that per the Posse Comitatus Act and DOD regulations, that means, okay, normally looking at those, no, you don't use the military because it says what? The U.S. is generally prohibited. I mean, generally, no, we don't do that. From the employing Title 10, USC, United States Code, DOD, Department of Defense, forces to provide direct military. It didn't say indirect. It doesn't say direct and or indirect. It says direct. So it's giving you a specific saying that normally, no, we don't use Department of Defense forces with law enforcement. Direct involvement. To enforce the law of the United States unless, there's that key word. So generally, unless are your key words in that whole sentence. And then you got to know that, okay, those make the whole thing. And it says expressly authorized by the Constitution or Congress. And then when you go over the special operations, when you go to the 2016 Unconventional Warfare and Pocket Guide, when you go to it and you read on the, it's page 10, I believe it is. When you go there, right above that pyramid that I've shown all of you multiple times on my pages, there's a pyramid there, and it shows all your different resistance operations. All right. Right above it, it specifically says in there on page 10, it'll tell you that if the United States government does not do a certain thing, military can still act. And see, that's where a lot of people, we won't say veterans specifically, but we'll say like the liberals out there, they have no respect for the military whatsoever. They disrespect the military daily. They have no appreciation for it. They have no appreciation for their freedoms. They have no appreciation how they have their freedoms. They have no appreciation whatsoever. So Republicans, conservatives, you don't want to look like liberals. But on page 10, I'm going to read it word for word here. It says, most or all of the representative activities will be conducted by a successful resistance or insurgency, regardless of whether the United States government makes the policy decision to support it. United States government support to resistance, unconventional warfare, is initiated by a presidential finding or an executive order. So see, this is unconventional warfare. President Trump does tip of the spear all the time. He wears spearhead all the time, special operations. He was just at Fort Bragg wearing the ball cap with the actual logo of this unconventional warfare that I'm reading from right now. Same exact patch, same exact insignia. And he's been doing it the whole time with Diddy, etc. He's been doing this. This is tip of the spear, special operations. All right. And all of the laws and orders from 2017 to present day outline this. So, again, whoever you are, wherever you are, if you love this nation, if you love our foundation, if you love our history, which you should, that's the only reason you should be here. If you don't, you should leave. Plain and simple. All right? And that's not one of those attitudes, oh, if you don't like it, leave. I'm one of those too. But if you don't love our history and foundation, you can't be yelling, protect the Constitution, or someone's a violation of it, because everything that is being used right now is the very thing that our founders did in a different capacity to set it all up. This is a true Declaration of Independence when a long train of abuses and usurpations become destructive of these ends. Right? When you hear all the terminology from the Declaration of Independence, that's what you're witnessing. And this tells you right here in special operations that the United States government don't even have to support it. Military can do what? We can act, because military came before the Declaration. It came before the Constitution. The military came first. Our founders established military first. Our war articles came first. June 30th, 1775, 16 days after the Army, the very first branch was established. And it was never supposed to be my branch versus your branch or none of that. Even the Army, Marine Corps, they all have fun with it. We all have fun, but it wasn't even supposed to be like that. Everybody has a role. Everybody has a certain thing you're supposed to do. It all ties together. It's all supposed to be for that. And a bunch of people got in there and made it competition, materialistic, all this stuff that it was never supposed to be. Ever. And this tells you right here in Unconventional Warfare Pocket Guide 2016, releasing of it, that the United States government does not have to support it and the military can still act. And it says unconventional warfare is initiated by a presidential finding or an ex-ord. You can't get any more clear than that. And then when you go read all the publications, start with your Title 50, Chapter 33, Section 1550, because that's the order. That's the foundational order. I did it backwards today on purpose. That's your foundational. That's your National Defense Authorization Act. All the executive orders in that first 180 days and all the first and to this day have not been terminated, rescinded, revoked. The ones that are regular that don't have national emergencies. The ones who have national emergencies, quote-unquote, Joe continued 8 that made no sense why he would do so. Those 8 are deporting the migrants. Those 8 are enforcing Doge. All right? Even quote-unquote Joe on paper to the normal person, quote-unquote Joe to the normal person, funded Doge in the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021. He funded Doge. If you want to just sit here and argue that Joe is real and all that other bull, then why did he fund Doge? President Trump can't be a threat or anything else when you have quote-unquote Joe on paper funding Doge and a few other things. The other executive orders, taking back the Panama Canal. We just sent 4,000 Marine Corps to Panama. Why would quote-unquote Joe continue Executive Order 13936 from July 14, 2020, which is a declaration of a national emergency with Hong Kong? Who did President Trump tell you is controlling the Panama Canal? Hong Kong? If we just sent 4,000 Marine Corps to Panama, just a couple weeks ago? Why would quote-unquote Joe continue that? Why would quote-unquote Joe continue Executive Order 13848, election interference? The National Guard, there's your National Guard again. They were at the 2018 election, 2020, 2022, 2024. For the normal person, they think that President Trump was president here and quote-unquote Joe was president for 2022, 2024. Why would quote-unquote Joe have National Guard at the polls? The National Guard can only be at the polls under federalization, because that's not just a state thing, that's a federal thing. And because Executive Order 13848 is a overall executive order by the president, that wasn't just for one state, that was for multiple states. Why were the same swing states of 2020 the same swing states of 2024? You don't know much about the deep state and the swamp if you don't know about swing states. Why were the same swing states the same? All right. So National Guard, they can't. No troop can be at the polls unless they're under presidential authority. Title 18, Section 592 specifically tells you that. It tells you that troops cannot be at the polls. You can't be in uniform, because if you're perceived as coercion or persuasion, trying to either coerce someone or persuade someone to vote and or prevent them from voting, violation. So why would quote-unquote Joe have National Guard at the polls 2022 and 2024 the same as 2018 and 2020? I mean, it all aligns. Also, Chinese Communist military. Why would quote-unquote Joe continue an executive order with a national emergency that froze all the assets of individuals, organizations, corporations, etc., of the people who are funding the Chinese Communist military? Quote-unquote Hunter Biden's recent interviews tied the laptop. It's there, this thing right here, I've showed it before, 636 pages, all validated and verified. Because it shows how Rudy Giuliani, President Trump, one of his attorneys, all right, shows how he received a copy from the FBI. It's all in here. And the recent interviews on that Channel 5 podcast validates that. They validate Rudy Giuliani, they validate the FBI, they validate this thing right here. Rudy Giuliani gave this group, this Marco Polo group, a copy. And they comprise all this 636 pages of all the filth and everything. And the chapters are China, Ukraine, Kazakhstan, Romania, Mexico, Serbia, Libya, you name it. All your prostitution, human trafficking, sex trafficking, all in here. It's all validated. Everything's validated in here. Why would quote-unquote Joe continue an executive order that's going to damn his administration, that's going to prosecute him, it's going to prosecute Obama, it's going to get them all? Why would Joe do that? If you're someone still in that seat that Joe is real or Joe is president, then why would he continue? And a continuation of executive order requires Congress and the president. Pen, paper, president's signature. Why would quote-unquote Joe continue all those executive orders I just named with the national emergencies? And why would he leave all these executive orders open with the National Guard, the reserve components that have not been terminated, rescinded, or revoked? Then you look at the tariffs. See, you don't even see, once you know all that, once you know all the laws and orders of the military first, then everything else is easy peasy, like the tariffs right now. Why all of a sudden is the appeals court saying that the tariffs are unconstitutional and they're dangerous? See, you're not watching and paying attention if you're still reacting to that negatively. And here's why. Because the tariffs were put into place in 2018. No judge ruled them unconstitutional then. Then you have 2021 to 2025. Now, congressional papers and congressional history will show you that the Trade Act of 1962 and the Trade Act of 1974 as presidential authority. But if you just want to roll with Congress too, that's fine. We can roll that way. It actually damns you if you want to roll that way. If someone's out there arguing with you over the tariffs and they want to roll the Congress outside of the president, then say, I wouldn't do that if I were you, because you just hung yourself. Intellectually and intelligently, you just hung yourself. So let them do it. Let them take it that far. Let them bring Congress into this and go, okay, let's bring Congress into this. Explain to me why President Trump put the tariffs into place in 2018. Let's do our hillbilly math, remember. 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021. That's 3 years worth of tariffs that no one ruled unconstitutional. No one ruled they were dangerous. No one ruled back then when the whole world thought that Russiagate and all this other stuff was so heavy on President Trump. No deep state went heavy on these tariffs. So how did they get through to 2021? And then for the normal people, your friends and family who may be arguing with you, then you say, okay, from 2021 to 2025, quote unquote, Joe did not terminate one single tariff. President Trump in a debate with quote unquote Joe, he said, did you notice he didn't take out my tariffs? He can't. Why can't he? They're presidential authority. President Trump went on to say because they're bringing in too much money. No, that's for the normies. If you're listening, he can't because of law. He can't because everything that shows in place, there's a military operation, military occupation, continuity of government. Executive Order 13961 was your invocation of the continuity of government. It was partially revoked on January the 19th, 2025. There's another thing that don't make sense. If we weren't in a continuity of government, then why is there a revocation of it? All right. And then why did they wait 4 years to revocate it, to revoke it? Makes no sense. All right, so there's that. So your tariffs, 2021 to 2025, quote unquote, Joe did not terminate one single tariff. From 2021 to 2025, not one judge tried to block a tariff. So see, it shows you, if you know what's going on, pat yourself on the back. Whatever you're drinking, if you're drinking a mimosa, you're drinking a tequila, whatever you're doing, coffee, whatever you cheers to, cheers yourself. Because you're awake and you know what's going on and you go, you know what? That is perfect sense. What, if they're unconstitutional, if they're dangerous, if they're adding money to the American consumer, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, the first thing people have to tell you, especially liberals, how come your boy, since you think he was real and president, how come he didn't terminate one single tariff from 2021 to 2025? How come not one single judge tried to block a tariff from 2021 to 2025? Answer that first. And then you can take it one step further if they want to use the term Congress. You say, well, I got you now for sure. Because they showed to you, the people, from 2021 to 2023, guess who had full control of the House and the Senate? Democrats. I save everything. Y'all know this that follow me. I save everything. I have the video where I was recording the TV, and they were asking about the border wall. Well, I asked for Congress to give me a bill. You don't need a bill for the border wall. Not when you're the president. That's an executive decision. And all the laws show that. The Constitution shows it. Your Title 10 shows everything shows it. So they've told the American people. And then you have visuals like the tip of the spear. Those are proclamations. Those are timestamp proclamations showing you everything you're watching is an operation. And then when it's all said and done, you're going to be able to go back and come to my pages, especially because I'm the one that documents that. Well, President Trump and Dan Scavino, certain people have documented it as well. But you'll be able to have documentation of those timestamp proclamations where no one can say, well, y'all hid this from us. No. Didn't hide it from you. You just didn't know the terminology. You didn't know the verbiage. You didn't care to know. You didn't have the initiative to know. You'll be able to say that to your friends and family that, no, we showed you. We told you. You didn't listen. You only You were hearing to react. You weren't listening to respond. And then the others did not listen at all because they didn't want to. And that's why it's important in the future, especially when we get to 2030, 2031, 2, and all those regions. When we get there, you should make sure none of your friends and family, all of a sudden, who maybe had the IQ but didn't utilize it, let's make sure they don't get no podcast. They don't need one. They don't deserve one. They don't need to get all the way over here and go, oh, yeah, Donald Trump did this, and this, and that. No. Keep doing what you've been doing. You know, whatever it is, whatever you were doing, you woodworker, whatever you were doing, you keep doing that. You don't need to don't be getting on no podcast. Not when President Trump brings capitalism back like it's never been before, and gold and silver. No. Don't you get on there trying to reap no benefits because you didn't know. That's where you, the people, have to make sure that those people stay out of the way. And you don't follow anybody. There ain't nothing new that can pop up right now. Nothing's new. It's all a pre-planned, special, strategic operation. And the laws and orders show it. So that's why you got to be careful. Again, consistency. People like me, I don't care. People get mad, butt hurt, whatever. They'll get over it. If they don't like being talked to a certain way, they'll get over it. If they don't like being called out a certain way, they'll get over it. But all I do is talk about laws and orders currently invoked by President Donald John Trump. If they don't like that and they try to attack you, and if they're even attacking you by your looks or your personality or whatever it is, if someone's attacking you, they got a problem. Especially when it's someone like me talking laws and orders, just doing what I'm supposed to be doing, keeping an oath. Doesn't matter how long my DD-214 is. Doesn't matter how long my resume is. Doesn't matter. I'm contributing right now. They're not. All right. Anyone trying to distract you from the laws and orders, anybody trying to deviate you, mislead you, they got a problem. And they're showing their colors. This general showed his colors. This National Guard veteran showed they don't know anything about the laws and orders currently in place. They don't know anything about the laws and orders that's been on paper long before President Donald John Trump. They don't know anything about the oath where it says specifically foreign and domestic, had nothing to do with foreign, had nothing to do with going overseas, had nothing to do with that. It was an ironclad oath, meaning if you were acting foreign to our foundation, foreign to our history, foreign to our ideologies in the United States of America, in the United States, not outside. If you're foreign to our way of life, if you're foreign to our history, if you're foreign to our foundation, if you're foreign to our Declaration, if you're foreign to our Constitution, if you're foreign to our military, if you're foreign to anything to do inside the United States of America, you're the enemy. So if you don't want to be the enemy, don't act like it. And like President Trump told you down there in Texas, anyone who sets foot in that defined area or anywhere else he defines an area, anyone who sets foot, if you look guilty, guess what you're going to be treated like? Like you are guilty. And then you get to go through the steps of the process to prove your innocence. But if you'd have known the laws and orders on the front, you probably wouldn't have stepped in those positions. Now, I'll tell you another thing really quick. The J6ers, the J6 families, at first some of their parents were up in arms about me. I remember this very clearly. And I had a lot of their parents asking me questions all the time. And I said, if your child would have known, no matter how old they are, if they'd have known the laws and the orders first, they would have never set foot into that situation. Now, President Trump has made good out of it because of innocent people. That shows his compassion, it shows his capacity, etc., etc., etc. But this is a pre-planned operation. If you'd have known the laws and orders before, you'd have known not to go to certain places, not to look at certain things, not to stick your head in certain places, nooks, crannies, etc., etc. You'd have known better. So a lot more now being a little bit more supportive because I told them, and this is the same situation. You better not be going to Texas border. You better not be going anywhere, Arizona, certain places that they delegated as a territory not to set foot in. And then when they establish that anywhere else, if you look guilty, you're going to be treated as such, because that's what foreign and domestic was put in the oath for. If you look foreign to the United States, if you look like you don't know anything about our history and you're getting out there and you're acting like it, doesn't matter. That's why all this stuff about, oh, are they protesting or not? If you look guilty and you look like you're going to be someone who's going to create a resistance against the laws and orders, you're going to be treated as such. We have to have laws and orders. We have to have a foundation. We have to have procedures. We have to have them. Or we'd have Barney Fives walking around with their one little bullet in their pocket, walking around, and, oh, you got purple hair. Boom! And you find out, wait, they were a Republican with purple hair? They loved President Trump. They had purple hair. Oh, God, what did they do? That's what would happen. You'd have Barney Fives walking around taking the law into their hands if we didn't have a law and an order and a precedent, an order of precedence, and an order of successions. If we didn't have an establishment of a foundation and laws and orders, we'd have too many people taking the law into their hands. That's why so many people look atrocious right now. A lot of people. So, if you see someone attacking and they're trying to distract you, that's what they're doing first off. But if they're trying to distract you, there's other things they're misleading you on. All right, and it's either personal, and it's their personal beliefs, and it's opinions, and they're trying to persuade you or coerce you. You don't want persuasion and a coercion. Again, I'm not your persuader or I'm not coercing you. I'm showing you where the laws and orders are. Here's where you go read them. Here's how you study them. Here's how you apply them. Here's what they mean. Here's what they're doing. There's the visuals. That's how it works. So all this stuff you're seeing with the tariffs and all these other little things like the Newsom and everything, it's either central casting, or when President Trump gives someone a nickname, sometimes the nickname, it could be a central casting, but it also could be an operation, and they might be playing a good role. They might be a bad role visually, but they might be a good role underneath. That's why special operations is very important. That's why it's important to know. There's some things you're not going to know. You don't need to know. Stop worrying about it. There's certain things that you just can't connect right now because it doesn't have a connecting piece to it. Don't worry about it. Know what you can know. Study what you can study. Well, that's probably backwards, but study what you can study. Know what you can know. Apply those. It's kind of like people when they'll say, there's people out there, oh, there's books missing from the Bible. You don't even read the ones you have. So there's a lot of people out there who do not even read the Bible, claim to be Christians. They have the roadmap of Christ, but they don't even read the roadmap. But then you talk to them and they'll say, well, there may be books missing. You don't even read the ones you have. So see, that's why some things, if you believe God is God and God's almighty and God's a creator of all things, then I got the attitude that says, well, if God is the God of all things and God's the creator of all things and God is God and God's almighty and God's omnipresent and God knows everything, knows all, sees all, does all, then I'm pretty sure that he knew what was going to take place when books went missing from the Bible. I mean, that's the way you got to look at it. That's not only a positive attitude, but that's also a improvised attitude. You work with what you got. And so many people are not working with what you got. You're always looking for something else. More validation, more validation. You don't even see your own validation right here. So, it's all awesome. If you're a patriot, which most people on my pages are, but there's a lot of new people coming on board, which is great. Welcome. Glad to have you. You know, my personality ain't for everybody, but it's for me. It works for me. I get in the mirror every morning and say, all right, let's go to work. Let's show the people what they need to see. I'm not your husband. I'm not your boyfriend. So there you go. I don't need to be a certain way, but straight, direct, and show you what you need to know. All right. Also, be careful. I'm not contacting you on Signal and all these other. I don't know what. There's so many apps that are popping up these days. I'm not contacting you, telling you to contact me. I don't work like that. I don't talk about QFS. I don't talk about QFS wallets. I don't talk about anything quantum financial like that. When I talk about the quantum system, I quote laws and orders like Executive Order 13885 by President Trump, Quantum Initiative. And if I'm going to say anything about it, I'm going to show you a law that backs it. I'm not the person, those pages out there using my name, my brand, my image, my trademark, all that are saying stuff about your QFS and your QFS wallet and have you transferred this and have you received this. It's all fake. It's all fraud. It's all scams. All right. They never show my videos where I say this. So in every video from here out, I'm going to have to just say this on every video. They never show my videos when I tell people to stay away from that it's a fraud, it's a scam. Also, the people who are contacting you, trying to message you, and I mean, there's women all over the country that's in love with me, thinking we're getting married because someone is I don't know who they are, but they're talking to these people and they're engaging in conversation and they're always never available to FaceTime and all these other things to prove that because they're not me. All right, so I heard of this happening years ago to some other, I don't remember who it was, but they brought them on a show and the person thought they'd been talking to them and they hadn't. And they thought they were getting married, and they thought, they were in love. And, we're talking about emotional damage, sure, because that person literally thought that they were having a relationship. So there's all kinds of frauds and all kinds of scams out there at every capacity. All right, Linktree, LINKTR period, EE / 1776 Nation. Shows all my links. If my page is not on there, or if you don't see me validating that link tree on a page, it's not my page. Because I validate my link tree on all of my blue check and my red check accounts, which I only have one red check. Truth Social does the red. But I have a Derek Jonhson Country, Instagram, Facebook with a blue check, Derek Jonhson Country. I can't get the blue badge on 1776 Nation and Rattletrap 1766 Nation because they're still restricted heavily. So I won't be getting those for a long time. But on my blue badge and also my X, old school Twitter, it's Rattletrap 1776. On all my blue checks, I put my link tree up where you can go to the blue check, see me validate the link tree on there, click on that link tree on that blue badge, and then look at the links on there provided. Those are all my official and authentic accounts because it's on the blue badges. I validate it on the blue badges. So always go to a blue badge page and see for the validation of anything on there. All right. So, it's the same thing like Willie Nelson. Willie Nelson actually ended up writing a song about I woke up still not dead again today. All right. Well, there was all these hoaxes always flying around that Willie Nelson died. And they were like, and they would go out there and go, oh, Willie Nelson. And so he finally wrote a song and it said, so if I die, it's going to be on a blue badge page, and one of my official people will tell you, he's gone. You can finally celebrate, all you libtards and all you haters. You can finally celebrate, all right? And you can go to where I'm buried and fertilize my grass, all right, for me with your manure. If you want to poop on it, that's fine with me because I will finally be over you once and all for good. In another kind of way, all right? But, I live rent-free in all their minds. And in all the fake pages, all the scams and frauds, I don't know what's going to be done about that. It's out of my hands. I can't do anything about it. When we put one fire out, 100 more pop up. Nothing we can do about it. So that's why you have to be diligent. You have to listen. You have to make sure to follow instructions. Go to a blue badge page, find the link tree, click on the link tree, look at the accounts, click on each link, and make sure that you're following the correct page. That's the only way to solve all this. So, but it's been a good ride so far. I can't believe it's been 3 years. Whew. 3 years has been, it feels that way. One way it feels like 10, and one way it feels like 3. But it feels like 10 because I've met a lot of great patriots. I've met a lot of good people. So let me tell you one other quick thing too. We've been seeing some tampering with our packages. So like USPS, United States Postal Service, we have 27 orders right now that have been misplaced on purpose. Is what it's looking like. I do replace all those, and it comes out of my pocket. But because it was never about money in the first place. But there's been a lot of tampering. So if you order from my page, which is rattletrap1776.com, that's my official account with all the apparel and the books on it. If you order from there, be sure that you type in your address correctly first. That's the first and most important thing. There's been a lot of insufficient addresses because people get in a hurry and you click on the wrong thing. Make sure you put in your address first. If you haven't received your package within 2 to 3 weeks, then contact the email from the website. All right, it'll show you on there how to contact. All right, and then or you can call your bank and they'll provide that information as well. But make sure, all right, because I've been seeing a lot of pictures from Patriots out there where it looks like people are slitting it with knives. And remember, if someone's listening out there, if that's you, and you are that person, or anybody hears this, that's a federal law. And if I find out who you are, I'm prosecuting you. And we're going through federal law. And let me tell you what they do in federal law. They're coming for your 401k and everything that you possibly can have. And if you ever earn anything, they can put a judgment against you, and anything you ever earn in the future, it comes to me first. So remember, tampering with federal is exactly what it is. Federal law. All right. So be patient out there, ladies and gentlemen. If you are ordering from me, it does take us a little while, but then also there's certain things like that, and it's out of our control. And USPS they're trash so far, but you know, it's between them and UPS. They both have problems because they've all been hammered for what? Harvesting mail-in ballots. So we're going through a rough period right now with certain things because of choices from way back here that other corrupt people made. So be careful who you follow, be careful who you trust, be careful, and then also be patient as well in another manner. Military, President Trump, all the way down to me. Just be patient. Live a little life. Take it easy. Don't get uptight. Everything's happening on God's account and President Trump, the generals, the military. Not this one particular general, though, that showed his colors. So be careful.